The Rescue in the Void Captain. Zara Blackwood was elbow-deep in the guts of a defunct mining droid when the emergency beacon started screaming. The sound cut through the ambient hum of Nexus 7's recycling systems like a plasma cutter through tin foil, and Zara nearly dropped her fusion welder on her boot. "Dante, what's that racket?" she called to her AI companion, wiping grease from her weathered hands with a rag that had seen better decades. "Emergency distress signal, Captain," came the smooth, slightly sarcastic voice from the station's speakers. "The luxury liner Celestial Dawn is experiencing what I can only describe as a spectacular and highly expensive malfunction, approximately 4,000 kilometers off our starboard sensors." Zara squinted at the nearest viewport. Sure enough, a blooming flower of orange and blue plasma was expanding against the starfield like a deadly aurora. The Celestial Dawn. She'd heard of it. One of those platinum-class passenger ships that catered to politicians, royalty, and people who paid extra for their oxygen to be scented. "How spectacular are we talking?" she asked, already reaching for her emergency gear despite herself. Hull breach in 3 sections, engine core destabilizing, and life support failing on decks 7 through 12. "Oh, and Captain?" Dante's voice took on that particular tone he used when delivering especially. "Bad news. Long-range sensors indicate the presence of Etherian quantum signatures aboard. Royal family if the energy patterns are accurate." Zara paused, one arm halfway into her rescue suit. The Etherians weren't just another alien species. They were the alien species. Ancient, powerful, and with technology that made most other civilizations look like they were still banging rocks together. Their children would be worth more than some star systems. They'd also be dead in about 20 minutes if someone didn't do something stupid. "Dante, prep the Voidwalker. Full emergency loadout." "Captain, I feel obligated to point out that attempting to dock with a destabilizing luxury liner violates approximately 47 safety regulations, not to mention basic common sense." "Noted and ignored," Zara said, sealing her helmet. "Besides, when has common sense ever paid the bills?" The Voidwalker was Zara's pride and joy. A heavily modified rescue cutter that looked like someone had welded a medical bay onto a military interceptor and then painted the whole thing matte black for good luck. She'd built it herself from salvaged parts, military surplus, and sheer bloody-minded determination. As she launched from Nexus 7's docking bay, the scope of the disaster became clear. The Celestial Dawn was beautiful even in its death throes, all flowing curves and crystal accents, but now it tumbled slowly through space-trailing debris and atmosphere like metallic tears. "Dante, I'm reading multiple life signs, but they're scattered across 6 different sections. What's the most efficient rescue pattern?" "If you were sane, you'd wait for the proper rescue fleet that's currently 18 minutes out. Since I suggest starting with the royal family. Their biosignatures are showing on Deck 9, Section C." Zara smiled grimly and adjusted her approach vector. "You know me so well. Docking with a tumbling, damaged ship was like trying to thread a needle while riding a mechanical bull during an earthquake." The Voidwalker's magnetic clamps engaged with a grinding screech that Zara felt in her bones. And then she was cycling through the airlock into a corridor that looked like a war zone. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and the deck plating beneath her boots was buckled and scorched. Worse, she could feel the subtle wrongness in the air that meant the gravity generators were failing. Every step felt like she was walking on the edge of a cliff. Life signs dead ahead. "Captain," Dante whispered through her comm. 3 small signatures, 2 adult. One of the small ones is unusual." Zara rounded a corner and found them huddled in what had once been an elegant passenger lounge. 2 Etherian adults, their species' characteristic crystal blue skin now, pale with shock, were trying to shield 3 children from falling debris. But it was the smallest child that made Zara's breath catch. She couldn't have been more than 6 in human years, with wide silver eyes and delicate features that seemed carved from starlight. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped Zara cold. It was the creature she was clutching to her chest. The thing looked like someone had crossed a house cat with a soap bubble and then taught it to phase in and out of reality. Its fur shimmered between solid and translucent, and Zara could swear she saw miniature galaxies swirling in its eyes. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," she muttered. kid's got a quantum phase pet. Captain, one of the Etherian adults called, out, his voice carrying the musical overtones of his species. Please, you must help us. The children, that's what I'm here for. Zara interrupted, extending her hand. Captain Blackwood, and we need to move. Now. The older children, twins, maybe 8 years old, moved immediately toward her. But the Aoi, little one with the pet, shook her head violently. No, not without Shimmer, she said in perfect standard, her voice carrying an odd harmonic resonance that made Zara's teeth ache. She's scared. Honey, we can't. Zara started, but then the ship lurched violently as another explosion rocked the hull. Through the cracked viewport, she could see plasma beginning to vent from the engine section. The quantum phase creature, Shimmer apparently, made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane and phased partially out of existence, its form flickering like a bad hologram. She only does that when she's really frightened, the little girl said, and there were tears tracking down her cheeks now. I can't leave her. She saved me from the monsters in the dark realm. Zara looked at the child, really looked, and saw something that made her chest tight. This wasn't just stubbornness or childish attachment. The kid was genuinely terrified that leaving the creature behind would mean losing the one thing that made her feel safe. What's your name, sweetheart? Zara asked, crouching down to the child's level. Princess Lyanna of the Third Moon, the girl said with the careful pronunciation of someone who'd been taught proper titles. But mostly just Lyanna. Well, Lyanna, I'm Captain Blackwood, and I promise you, we're not leaving without Shimmer. But I need you to trust me, okay? The little princess studied Zara's face through her helmet visor with those impossible silver eyes, and for a moment, Zara felt something odd, like a gentle touch against her thoughts, warm and curious and entirely alien. Then Lyanna nodded. Okay, Captain Blackwood, I trust you. Getting everyone back to the Void Walker should have been the hard part. Should have been, except that quantum phase creatures apparently didn't understand the concept of staying put during an emergency evacuation. Shimmer kept phasing in and out of reality, sometimes taking parts of the ship's bulkhead with her, and twice Zara had to grab the creature mid-phase to keep her from accidentally teleporting into hard vacuum. This is highly irregular, Dante observed as Zara carried Lyanna while simultaneously trying to wrangle a partially interdimensional pet, and probably violating several laws of physics. Add it to my tab, Zara grunted, helping the last of the Etherian adults through the airlock. They made it back to the Void Walker with 30 seconds to spare. As Zara disengaged the docking clamps, the celestial dawn finally succumbed to its injuries. The fusion core went critical in a cascade of white light that painted the inside of Zara's cockpit in stark relief. When the afterimages faded, there was nothing left but expanding debris and the memory of elegant curves against the stars. Well, Dante said after a moment. That was dramatic. Also, Captain, I'm detecting some unusual quantum resonance patterns in the passenger bay. Zara looked back through the cockpit door. Princess Lyanna was sitting cross-legged on one of the emergency cots, gently stroking Shimmer's flickering fur while the creature purred in harmonics that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull itself. But it was the way they were both looking at her, with identical expressions of gratitude and something deeper, something that made Zara's chest feel tight. That told her this rescue had changed more than just a few lives. Dante, she said quietly, set course for Nexus 7, and maybe start researching Etherian customs regarding life debts. Captain, are you sure you want to know? Zara watched Lyanna whisper something to her pet that made the creature's eyes swirl with tiny stars and felt that strange warmth in her thoughts again. Stronger now, more certain. Yeah, she said, I think I need to know. The mark of the Void Walker ambassador. Thane Crosswind had delivered diplomatic pouches to 17 different worlds, negotiated 3 trade disputes, and once accidentally started a small war over a mistranslated recipe for soup. But he had never, in his 12 years of service, been summoned to the Etherian homeworld with a message that simply read, "Come immediately. Bring formal attire. Do not ask questions." standing now on the crystal platform of the Imperial Spire, watching twin suns set through walls of living diamond. Thane was beginning to understand why his stomach had been doing gymnastics for the entire 3-day journey. "Ambassador Crosswind," came a voice like silver bells from behind him. He turned to see an Etherian courtier approaching, her crystalline skin catching the dying light and throwing it back in prisms. "Her Imperial Majesty will see you now." Thane straightened his diplomatic sash and followed the courtier through corridors that seemed carved from single pieces of sapphire. The Etherian Imperial Palace wasn't built so much as grown, its walls humming with barely contained energy that made his teeth ache and his diplomatic implants chatter nervously. They stopped before doors that towered 3 stories high, covered in flowing script that seemed to write and rewrite itself as he watched. "A word of advice, Ambassador," the courtier said softly. "Do not attempt to understand everything you see today. Some knowledge is dangerous to minds not born to it." Before Thane could ask what that meant, the doors dissolved into mist, and he was walking into the throne room of the most powerful being in known space. Empress Valdris of the First Light was beautiful in the way that nebulae were beautiful, vast, ancient, and utterly inhuman despite her vaguely humanoid form. She sat upon a throne that appeared to be carved from crystallized time itself, and when she looked at him, Thane felt the weight of eons in her gaze. "Ambassador," she said, and her voice carried harmonics that bypassed his ears entirely, and spoke directly to his bones. "You come bearing routine trade agreements, but that is not why I have summoned you." Thane bowed as protocol demanded, keeping his eyes down. "I serve at your Majesty's pleasure." 3 months ago, the Empress continued, "a human saved my youngest daughter's life. More than her life, her soul. You will carry my response to this human." Despite himself, Thane looked up. "Your Majesty, if I may, what response?" Instead of answering immediately, Empress Valdris gestured to a space beside her throne. The air shimmered and suddenly, Princess Lyanna materialized, not walking from behind the throne, but literally stepping out of folded space itself. She was older than the reports had suggested, maybe 7 now, with the luminous silver eyes characteristic of royal Etherians. But it was the creature floating beside her that made Thane's breath catch. The quantum phase pet from the rescue reports, shimmer, but changed somehow. Where before it had been unstable, flickering between states, now it pulsed with steady rhythm, its form more solid. And both the princess and her pet were looking at something only they could see, their eyes focused on empty air with expressions of longing that made Thane's chest tight. "She calls for her Voidwalker," the Empress said quietly. "Day and night she reaches across space to the mind that touched hers in the moment of salvation. My daughter, Ambassador, has formed a quantum soul bond with Captain Zara Blackwood." Thane felt his diplomatic training desert him entirely. "A what?" "Something that has not occurred in over 1,000 years. A melding of consciousness across species barriers forged in moment of absolute trust and mutual sacrifice." The Empress's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. "Your human saved more than Lyanna's life. She saved her capacity for connection itself." "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I don't understand the significance." "My daughter was dying, Ambassador. Not her body, her soul. The attack that destroyed the Celestial Dawn was not random. It was an assassination attempt by the Shadow Court, using weapons designed to sever quantum consciousness from its host. Lyanna should have become an empty shell, alive but hollow." Princess Lyanna stepped forward then, her small hand reaching toward empty air. "She dreams of me too," she said in that musical voice. "Captain Blackwood. She sees through my eyes sometimes and I see through hers. She's fixing something that sparks and swears at her." The child giggled, a sound like water over crystal. "She has very creative words." Thane stared. A soul bond. He was no expert on Etherian mysticism, but even the most basic diplomatic briefings covered the significance of quantum consciousness connections. They were the stuff of legends, ancient myths about warriors and priests who could share thoughts across star systems. "What does this mean, practically speaking?" he asked carefully. Empress Valdris stood from her throne and suddenly the room felt smaller, as if her presence was bending space itself around them. It means, Ambassador, that Captain Zara Blackwood is no longer merely a human who performed a rescue. She is quantum bonded to the air of the third moon, touched by the deep light and marked by powers she cannot yet comprehend. It also means, added a new voice from the shadows, that she is now the most valuable target in the galaxy. Thane spun to see another figure stepping from what appeared to be solid wall, an Etherian male with the characteristic angular features of the military caste, but scarred in ways that spoke of battles fought in realms beyond normal space. General Carrion, the Empress acknowledged, share your concerns. The general moved with the fluid grace of someone who had trained in variable gravity, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of hard experience. The Shadow Court is not finished, Majesty. Our intelligence suggests they deliberately triggered the soul-severing attack knowing that a rescue attempt would be made. They wanted to create a bond. Why? Thane asked, though he was beginning to suspect he wouldn't like the answer. Because a human bonded to Etherian royalty represents either the greatest diplomatic opportunity in galactic history, General Carrion said grimly, or the perfect weapon to destroy both our civilizations. Princess Lyanna suddenly gasped, her silver eyes widening. She's in trouble, she whispered. Captain Blackwood, someone's shooting at her ship. The Empress moved faster than Thane's eyes could follow, her hand touching her daughter's forehead. For a moment, both their eyes flared with inner light, and Thane could swear he heard the distant sound of weapons fire and someone swearing creatively in Standard. The Nexus 7 mining station is under attack, Empress Valdris said, her voice now carrying undertones of barely controlled fury. Shadow Court vessels. They seek to capture or kill the Voidwalker before she can be brought under our protection. Your Majesty, Thane said carefully, what exactly are you asking me to do? The Empress turned to him, and in her alien features, he saw something surprisingly human, the desperate love of a mother for her child. I am asking you to carry an offer that will either save two civilizations or doom them both, Ambassador. You will go to Captain Blackwood. You will offer her sanctuary, protection, and a place at my daughter's side as her formal guardian and protector. You will offer her wealth beyond measure, technology beyond her understanding, and power beyond her imagination. And if she refuses, then my daughter will die by degrees, her soul slowly tearing itself apart trying to maintain a bond across impossible distances. And Captain Zara Blackwood will find herself hunted by forces that make the Shadow Court look like children playing with toy weapons. Thane looked at Princess Lyanna, who was still staring into empty air with those luminous eyes, her small hand stretched toward a person thousands of light years away. There's more, isn't there? He asked quietly. General Carrion nodded grimly. The bond grows stronger each day. Soon, they will begin to share not just dreams and emotions but memories, experiences, even physical sensations. Captain Blackwood is becoming something unprecedented, a human with access to Etherian quantum consciousness. Which means, the Empress added, that she is becoming capable of wielding powers that could reshape space itself. Powers that she has no training to control, no framework to understand, and no defenses against those who would exploit them. Thane felt the weight of galactic history settling on his shoulders. And you want her here where she can be protected and trained? I want her here, Princess Lyanna said suddenly, her young voice cutting through the adult conversation with startling clarity. Because she's my friend, and she's scared, and she doesn't understand what's happening to her any more than I understood what was happening to me before she saved me. The simple honesty in the child's words hit Thane harder than all the political implications and cosmic significance. At the end of all the mystical bonds and galactic consequences, this was about a little girl who missed her friend. I'll carry your message, Your Majesty, he said formally. But I have to ask, what if bringing her here starts the very war you're trying to prevent? Empress Valdris smiled then, and for the first time since he'd entered the throne room, she looked almost human. Then, Ambassador, we will face it with the Voidwalker at our side. And I pity any force in the galaxy that tries to harm a child under the protection of someone who walked into a dying ship to save strangers. As Thane bowed and prepared to leave, he heard Princess Lyanna whisper something that made his blood run cold. "Hurry, Ambassador, she's running out of places to hide."